My wife began an affair with Lucas Barnes over a year ago. Why I waited so long was beyond me. Maybe I was too comfy to face it. After hearing what was occurring, I was strangely disinterested. I waited, knowing she'd serve me divorce papers. Only mentally accepting the inevitable had I prepared. I accepted that she would take half of our possessions. She may have the house and furnishings. Their evaluated worth was below the mortgage. Sandra's 4 years of college were just covered by our savings. She might seek a share of my corporate rights in 3 years. Penny hid her affair. Barnes worked for my firm, which was thankfully the major concern. Although in a different department and pay grade. His arrogance bothered me, even if he was unmarried and gorgeous. Luckily, I could avoid him at work except for business parties. It escalated swiftly. Sandra went to Penn State for her first semester, leaving Penny and me alone in the house for the first time in 18 years. Usually a couple could reconnect sexually. Not in our instance. Penny was constantly exhausted or busy, and I stopped caring. Penny was showering on Saturday morning while I read the paper. Not expecting calls, I let the phone go to voicemail during our calm morning. But the message attracted my attention. My name is Harry Hernandez. Your watch is engraved. Ready for pickup anytime. Thanks. Curious. Never wore a watch and didn't want to. Penny didn't need an engraved watch either. She checked the time on her phone. Something prompted me to investigate. I rarely looked through Penny's stuff, but today I did. I found her jewelry store receipt in her purse. It showed a Tankhauer Carrera wristwatch with a forever engraved black alligator band. Penny paid $3,900 in full. I pondered the problem while replacing the receipt and drinking a refreshing beer. It was obvious the watch wasn't for me. Penny entered the living room while I mowed the yard. The grass took twice as long to trim, giving me time to think. Penny announced her overnight stay at her sister's Frackville home after lunch. Bright smile went across my face. Since the evening was free, I finally finished the year-long project. I regretted waiting until the last minute but was happy to have decided. She got home at lunchtime Sunday. We were polite yet quiet. This Sunday felt like my longest. That night, I slept on the couch. Monday morning at work went well until Lucas showed off his new watch. I was prepared to endure it until he smirked. He'd been quiet about the affair until then, but now he was gloating. Big error. I immediately took a week's vacation and told HR I wanted to move to Baltimore. I accepted this time after denying it owing to Penny and Sandra's reluctance to move. The new job included a promotion and rise. Finished the day at the bank. With my lawyer, I offered Penny everything but a liman and a percentage of my pending pension. Since college was expensive, she just had to take Sandra's tuition per installment. Having minimal savings. I relocated everything into a modest efficiency flat near work when my wife wasn't home. Tuesday I rested. Penny contacted me Wednesday after receiving the divorce papers. Does Thomas wish to explain? Discuss anything? She asked. No, I answered. Why should I sign these papers? She asked. Penny, you know it's overdue. Just signing the paperwork will fix everything. I'm on the short end. Gain everything. Lose nothing. No assistance from you. You offered nothing after 20 years. Alimony would last till marriage. This seems like a waste of time. Everything will end in 90 days. I bet it will take over a year to change things. I wish to proceed. I know you're moving. Who told you? Knowing the answer. Does it matter? Right now, no. Conversation paused. Penny, I'm hurt. I must move. I'm punished despite doing nothing wrong. Barnes has been familiar to me for years. Just sign the paperwork. I'm sorry, Thomas. I never intended this. I'll send them to lawyers tomorrow. I had a great chance to guilt her, but I didn't. I organized my desk at work on Friday. It surprised everyone, and some regretted not having a proper departure party, but I wasn't feeling festive. It took less than an hour to out-process. I tried to explain. How do you tell your daughter you're leaving her mother without a reason? She asked once, and then dismissed the issue, as if she knew what was happening. I couldn't think she wouldn't given how long things had been strained. She seemed to comprehend. Sadness accompanied the Baltimore drive. I couldn't stop thinking about Penny and my failing existence. I always wanted to age with her. Aging seemed immaterial now. I didn't care. Penny never apologized or recognized her conduct. We avoided the issue, knowing what was happening but not wanting to face it. It drives people insane. Activated the radio. Who is Lady Gaga? The new work was easy. I was overqualified. My knowledge and confidence reassured my staff. The move seemed encouraging. Sandra kept me informed about her mother. Sandra wasn't happy when Lucas and Penny moved into our house a week after I left. I couldn't blame her. Penny accepted the divorce conditions without a lawyer. Everything was on time, so I just had to wait. With barely 3 weeks until the divorce was complete, I booked a 10-day Caribbean cruise. Although I disliked cruises, this one was required. I saw some old acquaintances in Atlantic City the weekend before I left. I gave them wine, food, and entertainment. Reuniting with old pals was fun. 10 days at sea felt lengthy. Which I despised more, the food or the guests. Occasionally I felt pursued by at least 3 single ladies, though I wasn't sure. I took advantage of port stops to break up the monotony. Baltimore detectives, requested by the Pennsylvania State Police, appeared at my residence unexpectedly. They brought bad news. Lucas Barnes' body was found at a Pennsylvania highway rest stop. He died on the route to the hospital after being savagely battered with a baseball bat. His wallet and watch were stolen, indicating a botched robbery. I became the top suspect after Barnes' link to Penny was revealed. Thankfully, local police confirmed my alibi in just 30 minutes. I was on a 10-day cruise. Pennsylvania State Police quickly judged my involvement did not warrant further inquiry. However, my phone recorded the commotion in my absence. Sandra informed me of Penny's desperate attempts to find me after sharing my cruise plans with her mother. Penny's insistence worried me because I hate cruises. I instantly returned Sandra's call. "Sandra, I returned from my cruise. What happened?" Sandra said, her voice thick with distress. "Mom's coming apart. Lucas never came home from work and was found beaten to death on the road near Downingtown." "When did this happen?" "I was in Cancun last Thursday, so it couldn't have been me. Mom says you were involved, but there's no proof." After a lengthy conversation, the local police appear happy with my explanation. "Then, why is your mom calling me?" "Lost, she is. She lost you and Lucas. She mentioned an attempt to stop the divorce. Can she? Not without my consent. If I'd waited a few days, this wouldn't be happening." Penny and Winstead, an attorney, called the following week. I disregarded them all. A certified letter demanding my signature arrived 2 days before the divorce. My secretary delayed its arrival, letting me depart work. 3 days in Atlantic City followed. Before going home, I called my lawyer. He praised me on avoiding Penny's divorce stopper, and joked about requesting $10,000 more for expenditures. After an uneasy moment, he laughed. A corny joke, but it lightened the mood. He accepted a steak supper instead of money. Even though the joke was poor, it was worth it. I never understood why the police stopped investigating Barnes and never contacted me again, giving congrats but with the caution a youngster might feel about their parents' breakup. Penny's sister Nicole stayed with her throughout her profound despair. Penny realized she had serious financial issues suddenly. I smiled after hanging up the phone. Penny and I didn't talk for 2 years. I didn't monitor or ask about her. I chatted with Sandra monthly. We avoided mentioning Penny tastefully. The bank took her house, and I just knew she worked in a mall women's clothing business. Penny told Sandra Lucas had 2 insurance plans identifying his mother as beneficiary, but Mother Barnes didn't want to share. My dinner dates were unromantic. Sandra announced her June wedding later that year. I had met her fiancé several times and supported her decision. Dad paid most of the wedding costs in Harrisburg, his hometown. I was happy to help however I could. More visitors were expected as the groom had a wider family. I promised to give away the bride if Sandra guaranteed no contact with Penny. She agreed grudgingly, although I didn't want trouble at my daughter's wedding. Being near Penny would intensify it. I had one more wedding preparation after getting a tuxedo fitted. Mischievousness got the best of me. As usual, the wedding was lovely. Sandra keeps her word. The arrangements allowed Penny and I to avoid each other without being noticeable. Penny was with a well-dressed 50-year-old man as I sat alone. I never learnt their relationship. He may have been her neighbor, coworker, or boyfriend. I didn't care. At the reception, Penny and her friend sat at the far left of the head table and I at the right. So I patiently waited to toast the father of the bride. Standing up to speak, I crossed my fingers. The prank was ridiculous, but I wanted it to work. I'm right-handed, but I held the glass with my left today. My words were unimportant. My gesture counted. My tuxedo sleeve dropped to expose a magnificent Ted Howard timepiece with a black alligator strap. I extended my arm too much, showing the magnificent clock to everyone in the room. A gasp from the other end of the table verified my mission's accomplishment. I enjoyed my speech and spoke longer than usual. I smiled when I sat down. Penny saw the watch, and her strategy paid off. I saw my ex-wife and her escort leave minutes later. She appeared upset. It was unclear if she was crying. I stayed another hour as the responsible father before retiring to my hotel room. I couldn't sleep that night. I was unsure of Penny's reaction. Not acting would suggest she accepted her fate and moved on. If she was still bitter, I might expect unwanted guests. The answer arrived at 6 a.m., Thomas Harris. I saw 2 dark-suited men at my door. I laughed thinking of Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones in Men in Black. "Yes, how can I help?" The forceful one indicated they represented the state attorney's office. I wondered who woke them up so early. I signaled for them to sit while hastily putting on my trousers. I was anticipating them and should have dressed before they arrived. I carefully sat on the unmade bed in the motel room with only 2 chairs, taking longer than required to establish comfort. "What can I help you with, gentlemen?" I asked as they entered. "You're Thomas Harris, who attended Stuart Harris' wedding yesterday?" someone asked. "Indeed, Sandra Harris, now Stuart, is my daughter," I said. "You were accused of wearing an expensive Tag Heuer watch during the reception." The other said I grabbed the big nightstand watch. "I wore this watch." "You like it?" "That's unimportant, Mr. Harris. We want to know where you got the watch." The first asked why. My challenge: just answer the question. The second pressed no. "You tell me why you want to know where I got it, and who told you I had it, and then I'll answer," I countered. "Mr. Harris, we're trying to make this easy. Could you just answer the question?" The first one insisted. "Fine. I got the watch on eBay. Now tell me why you want to know." I relented. "A watch identical to the one you're holding was found on a man killed in Downingtown 3 years ago." The second one explained. "I'm sure there are plenty of watches like this one. Can you be more specific?" I challenged further. They seemed uneasy. I sensed they were considering dragging me off to some government building to continue the conversation. "Mr. Harris, are you acquainted with a man named Lucas Barnes?" "Of course I am. I used to work with him. He's the one who had an affair with my wife, which ultimately led to our divorce. Mr. Barnes owned a watch exactly like this one when he was killed." "How do you know that?" My 2 visitors remained silent. "Was the watch found on him when he died?" Both shook their heads no simultaneously. "Do you think this could be his watch? They were supposed to be?" Leading this informal interrogation, but it seemed they were losing control. "Who told you this was Lucas Barnes' watch?" "Your wife, Mr. Harris, she identified it." "And how did she know it was his?" There was a moment of hesitation. "She said she bought it for him." "Perhaps you should speak to her." No response. "That's it. Is that all you have?" "There's an engraving on the back of the watch that confirms her claim." "Can she prove she bought this watch?" "She has a receipt." "Dan, I have a receipt too. Let me show you." They sat in silence as I retrieved the folded paper from my wallet and handed it over. The lead guy glanced between the paper and me. "This is from eBay. It says here you bought the watch for $49. "Yeah, but I had to pay $5 for shipping." "You got a Tag Heuer watch on eBay for $49. "Not exactly. Take a closer look at the description." Both of them scrutinized the description, unaware of the wide grin on my face. "It says, Tag Heuer, not Tag Heuer. Look at the watch face." The second suit examined it closely as I held it out. He turned to his partner. "It says Tag Heuer. Gentlemen, did my wife buy a Tag Heuer watch for Mr. Barnes or a Tag Heuer watch for him?" Frustration clouded their faces. Things weren't going as planned. "Can we see the back of the watch, Mr. Harris? You want to check the engraving?" "Yes, if you don't mind." "Not at all." Handing them the watch, I watched as they inspected it. I had made my point. As I put on my shirt, they stood to leave. "Sorry for the inconvenience. Mr. Harris, have a safe trip home." After they left, I shut the door and glanced at my watch. I was pleased I had opted for the extra $20 to get it engraved. Flipping it over, I chuckled at the old English script, "Eat shit and die." Sure, they could have easily checked the serial number, but where's the fun in that? Driving back to Baltimore, I knew my wife was still resentful of how I handled things. I couldn't entirely blame her, but I had hoped for some remorse on her part. It stung that she was still up to hurt me or seek revenge. After all, she was the one who cheated, not me. Maybe it was time for me to level the playing field. I tossed the Tag Heuer watch out of the car window and reached into the glove compartment. Just by the touch, I could tell the difference. Before putting on the real deal, I read the inscription for the umpteenth time, "Forever Penny." I hated wearing watches, but maybe I could get used to this one. "I'm going to make it through," just like old Blue Eyes said.